The invitation to Sunday dinner came as a surprise. My parents hadn't invited me over in months, not since I refused to loan them $50,000 for my younger sister Sarah's destination wedding. My brother Tom had called me selfish, reminding me how they'd supported my education, conveniently forgetting I'd worked 3 jobs to put myself through medical school while they funded his failed business ventures. Still, something about Mom's insistence made me wary. After 15 years as an emergency surgeon, I'd developed a sixth sense for approaching storms. This dinner invitation felt like watching storm clouds gather on the horizon. I pulled up to their suburban home in my modest Honda Civic. I'd learned long ago not to show any signs of financial success around my family. The last time they'd seen my Mercedes, it had sparked a 3-hour lecture about family obligations and how I should be sharing my blessings. Sarah's BMW and Tom's new Audi were already parked in the driveway. Of course they were here. This was clearly a family ambush. Emily. Mom's smile was too bright as she opened the door. You're finally here. Everyone's waiting. The dining room was set with Mom's best china, another warning sign. Dad sat at the head of the table, a manila envelope beside his plate. Sarah and Tom flanked him, both wearing expressions that reminded me of cats who'd found an injured bird. Well, look who decided to grace us with her presence, Sarah smirked. At 32, my younger sister had never held a job longer than 6 months, but she'd perfected the art of manipulating our parents. Too busy saving lives to visit family? I ignored her jab, taking my seat. Thanks for inviting me, Mom. What's the occasion? Can't parents want to have dinner with their daughter? Dad asked, but his hand rested protectively on the manila envelope. Mom served her signature roast chicken, another red flag. She only made this when she wanted something. I'd barely taken 2 bites when Dad cleared his throat. Emily, we need to discuss something important. He pulled out documents from the envelope. Your mother and I have been updating our will. But we've been thinking about our legacy, Mom continued, her voice practiced. About ensuring our assets are distributed appropriately. Tom straightened up, attempting to look solemn but failing to hide his smirk. Sarah didn't even try to conceal her satisfaction. We've decided, Dad announced, that given your financial situation, you don't need an inheritance. The house, our savings, everything will be split between Sarah and Tom. I set down my fork, the metal clicking against fine china. My financial situation? Well, you're a doctor, Mom said, as if that explained everything. You make enough money. Your siblings need it more. I looked at Sarah, wearing designer clothes and a new engagement ring, then at Tom, who'd just returned from his 3rd vacation this year. Neither had ever supported themselves fully, always relying on our parents' generosity. Besides, Sarah added sweetly, you turned your back on the family when you refused to help with my wedding. Family should help family. Mom placed her hand on the will, her eyes meeting mine with a coldness I'd never seen before. You won't get a single cent, Emily. That's final. The room fell silent, waiting for my reaction. They expected tears, protests, maybe begging. Dad, I smiled. All right, I said calmly, standing up. Then don't expect a single cent from me either. Not now, not ever. What's that supposed to mean? Tom demanded. I picked up my purse, my voice steady. It means exactly what I said. Don't call me when you need money. Don't call me when there's a medical emergency. Don't call me for anything. You're being dramatic, Mom scoffed. Where else would they go for medical help? To whatever doctor will treat them without my referrals or connections. To whatever hospital will accept them without my reputation backing their bills. To whatever specialist will see them without my recommendation. The confidence began to fade from their faces as my words sank in. You wouldn't, Sarah whispered. Watch me. I walked to the door, then turned back one last time. You've made your choice. Now live with it. As I drove away, I could see them through the dining room window, heads bent together, probably congratulating themselves on putting me in my place. They had no idea what was coming. Sometimes the worst storms are the ones you don't see approaching. The first sign of trouble came 3 weeks after the dinner. Tom called me 17 times in 1 hour. I let each call go to voicemail, remembering Mom's cold eyes as she declared I wouldn't get a single cent. The 18th call came from the hospital where I was chief of emergency surgery. Dr. Harrison, my colleague Dr. Peters, said, your brother Tom is in the ER. Severe abdominal pain. He's demanding to see you specifically. I'm not available, I replied calmly. Any of our qualified surgeons can handle it. There was a pause. He's having difficulty with the payment arrangements. He mentioned you usually handle that. Of course. I'd been quietly arranging preferential treatment and managing payment plans for my family for years. They had no idea how many strings I'd pulled, how many favors I'd called in. Not anymore. Treat him like any other patient. Tom needed an emergency appendectomy. Without my intervention, he faced the full cost, $35,000. His multiple failed businesses had left him with abysmal credit, and our parents' assets were mostly tied up in their house. A week later, Sarah's turn came. She'd been skiing in Aspen, another luxury trip she couldn't afford, and torn her ACL. Again, my phone exploded with calls. Emily, please, she sobbed in a voicemail. The specialist here won't see me without payment up front. Mom and Dad can't help because of Tom's hospital bills. I know what they said at dinner, but I'm your sister. I deleted the message. The real nightmare struck 2 weeks later. Dad had a heart attack. Mom's hysterical call came at 3 a.m. Emma, your father, please, we need you. The hospital wants $150,000 for the cardiac surgery. They won't do it without payment arrangements. He needs the best surgeon. I was already at the hospital. I'd been notified when he was admitted. I stood outside his room watching through the window as he lay there, connected to monitors. The best cardiac surgeon? I said into the phone. That would be Dr. Williams, who, coincidentally, only takes special referrals. Usually from me. Emily, please. Mom's voice broke. Whatever you want. We'll change the will. Anything. This isn't about the will anymore, Mom. This is about years of taking me for granted. Years of expecting me to solve everyone's problems while treating me like a family ATM. He's your father. And I'm your daughter. The one you disinherited because I was doing well enough on my own. Remember. The silence on the other end was deafening. There are other hospitals, Mom finally said weakly. Yes, there are. And every cardiac surgeon worth having in this city knows me. They know my work. They value my referrals. Good luck finding one who'll take a high-risk surgery without payment up front, especially with your current financial situation. I hung up, watching through the window as Mom returned to Dad's bedside. She looked older, defeated. Sarah and Tom huddled in the corner, finally facing the reality of their choices. A nurse approached me. Dr. Harrison, your father's labs are back. Not good. I nodded, thinking of all the times I'd saved them, supported them, protected them, and how they'd repaid that devotion with greed and manipulation. Thank you, Jenny. Please ensure he receives standard care protocols. Not your usual premium care instructions? She asked, surprised. No. They made their choice. Now they get to live with it. The next 48 hours transformed my family in ways their precious will never could. I watched from a distance as they scrambled to arrange financing for Dad's surgery. Their perfect facade cracked under pressure. Sarah had to sell her designer bags, Tom pawned his Rolex, and Mom called every relative begging for loans. Dr. Williams, the cardiac surgeon, stopped me in the hallway. Emily, your father's case. I've never known you to refuse a family referral. Things change, I replied, updating another patient's chart. He'll have to transfer to County General. The outcome statistics there for this type of surgery. He trailed off meaningfully. Sometimes people need to understand the true cost of their choices, I said quietly. Not just in money but in consequences. That evening I found Mom alone in the hospital chapel. She looked up as I entered, her makeup streaked with tears. We found a surgeon at County General, she said, her voice hollow. The success rate is lower, but it's what we can afford. I sat beside her, maintaining professional distance. You know, Mom, for 15 years I've been the family safety net. Every emergency, every crisis, every financial disaster, I fixed it. Not because you asked nicely. Not because you appreciated it. But because I believe that's what family does. Emily, we didn't know. No, you knew. You just didn't care. You saw my success as a resource to exploit, not an achievement to celebrate. When was the last time any of you asked about my day? About the lives I save? About the 70-hour weeks I work? She stayed silent. Did you know I was offered a position as head of surgery at Mayo Clinic last month? Of course not, because at the family dinner where I planned to announce it, you were too busy disinheriting me. Mom's hands trembled. We can change the will. This isn't about the will anymore. It's about respect. It's about family meaning more than just who can provide what. It's about understanding that success comes with responsibility, not entitlement. I stood up, straightening my white coat. I've instructed Dr. Williams to take Dad's case. Pro bono. Her head snapped up. Not because of your tears. Not because of the will. But because I took an oath to save lives, and I won't let my father become a casualty of this family's greed. Thank you, Emily. She started to reach for me, but I stepped back. Don't thank me yet. There are conditions. First, Sarah and Tom get jobs, real jobs, not their usual schemes. Second, you and Dad attend family counseling. Third, you all learn to stand on your own feet. And if we don't agree? Then Dad gets transferred to County General and you all live with that choice. 20 minutes later, I watched them sign the agreement I'd had my lawyer prepare. Sarah cried as she accepted a position as an entry-level office assistant. Tom agreed to sell his car and start paying his own bills. Mom and Dad committed to weekly counseling sessions. Dad's surgery was successful. During his recovery, I visited strictly as his doctor, maintaining professional boundaries they'd never thought to respect before. 6 months later, things had changed. Sarah discovered she actually enjoyed earning her own money. Tom started a small legitimate business without asking for family handouts. Mom and Dad learned to see their children as adults, not resources or burdens. The will. They revised it to divide everything equally, but by then it didn't matter. I'd helped them understand that true family wealth isn't measured in inheritances or handouts, but in respect, independence, and mutual support. Today, my parents' house has a new family photo on the wall. In it, we're all standing together at my Mayo Clinic appointment ceremony. Sarah's wearing off-the-rack clothes but a genuine smile. Tom's tie is cheap but his pride is real. Mom and Dad look older but wiser. Me. I'm in my white coat, finally seen not just as the family ATM, but as Dr. Emily Harrison, Chief of Surgery, and a daughter whose value extends far beyond her bank account. Sometimes the hardest lessons require the strongest boundaries. And sometimes hitting rock bottom is the only way for a family to build a stronger foundation. They never tried to use me for money again. Instead, they learned something more valuable, that true family worth isn't measured in cents and dollars, but in respect, growth, and genuine love. The will sits in a drawer now, largely forgotten, because we all finally understood that the real inheritance isn't what's left behind when someone dies. It's what we build together while we're living.